Om Vim Dim Kam Tam Welcome to this video on the Zen Aura channel. My name is Sri Satguru, Buddha Rawa Bhagwan. In today's video, we'll talk a little bit about magic. So what is magic? Well, there are different types of magic. There is illusion magic, magic, for example, the magician who uses a magic trick to do something, right? To create an illusion of something. But there is also magic that is real. So there is a distinction between the magician that does this to entertain someone, for example, entertain a crowd, pulling a rabbit out of the hat with a magic trick, a deceit, a sleight of hand. And then there is the magician that has power to alter the world, to alter the system in more ways than by deceiving with sleight of hand. There are different types of magic, so it is important to make a distinction between magic to entertain, magic for fun, and magic to alter one's life circumstance, the world, or someone else's life circumstance, or to protect one's circumstance, or to protect oneself, one's family. There are different methods to protect oneself. Now, there are physical methods to protect oneself. There are methods such as having a stable country, stable borders, etc. But there are also many, many ways in all our life of protecting oneself. For example, having locks on our doors for our homes. For example, having fences around the pools in our backyards for safety, protecting, different things of protecting. We didn't think about that, but what about a rail guard on an on a balcony? A way of protecting. There are different systems that protect, that ensure safety. Safety systems. There are other systems, for example, that are used offensively, right? Such as war systems, things like that. There are some systems that are used as tools to build, right? So there's building, so there is the tools that are used to maintain, to fix, to repair, right? There are the tools that are used for the functions of creation, which are creation, preservation, and destruction. So as there are physical tools that do these functions of creation in our physical life, there are also magical tools that can be used to do these functions as well. Magic comes from different sources. Power of magic, power of the practitioner, the ability of the practitioner, the experience of the practitioner. comes from different sources, different origin stories of their magic, where their magic comes from. There are different colors and shades of magic, different flavors of magic, different smells of magic, different manifestations of magic, different facets to magic, different traditions of magic, different lineages of magic, different deities or beings of power that are connected to do magic. As I said in the previous video on this channel, there are white practitioners and dark practitioners. And this remains true in magic as well. So there are practitioners of magic that go towards the forces of evil and those that go towards the forces of good. And often the ones that go to evil are misguided in the early steps or just very evil themselves. And there is a balance and play between the forces of good and the forces of evil. And what we see is the forces of good are often regular good people. And the forces of evil are people who have gotten a little bit more power than that. But then you have those forces of good that have been around for a long time, protecting all the creation and the story. And they are very powerful, more powerful than the forces of evil. There are many beings of power. Power comes from different places, different sources. For example, there are the beings that are connected to the end day, to Judgment Day, when the forces of God will come. All the armies of God, the shadow armies of God, of the Popol Vuh, the storyline of demons. And they will come, and it will be the end days. And there will be the commanders amongst the humans, amongst the forces of God. And they are the ones who will receive drips. So 1 drip, 2 drips, or 3 drips of power. And this determines how much power they have and what level they are in the armies of God, preparing for Judgment Day and the things that come before then. So these are the drips of power that come from me, that I give to them. The drips that I give to commanders of my armies amongst humanity and the Devas. Often reincarnated beings of power that are parts of my armies that come and are given drips of power. 1 drip is very powerful, a being of power. 2 drips is disgustingly powerful, and 3 drips is a high commander at that level. You know. And then there are other sources of power, such as the levels of the Adi Shri, and the lineages and the dish dispensers that come from the Adi Shri. There are the professions, right? The professions of the Maya Vu. And these professions are different trades, coming from a menu of trades, which empower the practitioner to use different abilities as their understanding grows and changes within the understanding of those trades, and they specialize in different trades. And then there is the breakfast dispensing system, where breakfast plates are dispensed, right? With eggs on the breakfast, 1 egg, 2 egg, 3 eggs. The Naga system, the Naga eggs of Ishwara. The Adi Shri, from the domain that belongs to God himself, who oversees the dispensing of city powers and abilities within the system. As I have explained, this world was created in the story of the Mahavu, the Mayavu, Mahamaya, the storyline of history living of the Maya. And the Maya, as we know, is the story of everything, of all that takes existence and form. And within it, the 5 streams created by Papa Mahamaya Ishwara Om Tek Rasiva Adi Bhagwan. So there are different types of magic coming from different origin stories. Different people are empowered in different ways, but the empowerments come from the beings of power that have the ability to sponsor others for empowerment. And in the armies of God, the armies of Judgment Day, there is a hierarchy of beings and commanders within the armies that are amongst everyone here on earth. And there is a dimension where the shadow being armies of God wait for their orders. And there are the angels who wait. And the saints. It is the story which comes together, the story of the Kalki Avatar and Judgment Day, the final avatar. It is the story of the being that John the prophet saw and wrote about in his prophecy when he talked about the being that he saw. It is the same being that gave John the prophet those visions. God the Father empowers people to use magic. And different beings of power within his hierarchy of spiritual beings of power and gods can empower beings to use magic. But in a way, they sponsor those beings to get empowered by God the Father, who controls with an iron hand the power distribution of powers within the system. The one who's always watching. When that weird bird is circling above you. The one who looks through everything in the system. The one who is all-pervading. Mahavishnu, the Kalki Avatar. So magic exists in different forms, in different ways, and takes different manifestations according to the being who sponsors that being into magic, as different beings use different paths of magic. And the beings that come underneath them in magic will often resemble the path of the being that has sponsored them. In this way, there are some that go to nature spirits, for example, for magic. There are some that go to gods for magic. There are some that go to God himself for magic. There are some that go to God's wife, the goddess, for magic. There are some that go to God's girlfriend, Santa Muerte, for magic. There are some that go to the spirits for magic. There are some that go to many different places for magic. There are some that go to the ancestors for magic. There are some that go to different types of spirits for magic, such as land spirits and spirits of those who have come before, who have become associated to a land. There are many different forms of magic and utilizations of magic and applications of magic, and they all become true when they have a true origin story of magic. There are also magic from the first stories before this story, which can be used. There is the magic of the vampires, to glamour, to become invisible, to disappear, to fly. Many different types of magic. There are the magics of the witches, which also have an ability to fly. There are many abilities, many powers within this story. And many people have different types of abilities and powers that they can use. For what you see in the physical world, this accounts for 1% of what is really going on, maybe less than that. And 99% more is taking place even in parallel dimensions, which are all interconnecting. And when things take place at those dimensions, things take place at this dimension too. And there's an interrelation between the parallel dimensions which interconnect and operate interconnectedly. So when one can work at different levels of different lokas, they become more powerful. Lokas are dimensions of existence which are interconnecting, layers of creation, layers of existence. The code of existence and its different manifestations and layers and applications. And the work that can be done when you work at the level of the code using these different languages of code. These different sounds of code. Magic can be used in many different ways. There are wizards, for example, that can hammer in certain spells into paper, tap it in, hammer it in, tap it in. And then there is the way to release these spells by putting them into the fire so that they are released. Spells are conceived, spells are prepared, spells are released, spells are activated. There are many different types of magic. There is the sorcerer, which creates organic constructs at different levels of different lokas. For there is a loka where magic moves. Most types of magic exist in different lokas, but there are specific lokas where you see the magic move. And sorcerers can use organic constructs to control things that take place at this loka. They can put in spells in certain rooms, in certain situations, if they have the time of that situation. There are ways of connecting to different time and place with a spell. There are different ways of conceiving the spell, and often things like association is used, right? Some items are used because they are understood to mean something spiritually. often associated to what they mean physically, but not directly always the same association. It could be a distant association in different types of magical use. The same thing goes for spiritual use. There is this distinction between spiritual and magical sometimes. Spiritual power is the power of the Deva, the spirit power of spirituality. Magic is what they can do with it, or one aspect of what they can do with it. For the stronger a being is spiritually, the more powerful their magic is. The more experienced they are with their magic, the more powerful their magic is. The more they are empowered within a lineage, the more powerful their magic is. Because the powerful magic comes from lineages of masters who become masters of their craft. So if you pick up a book and you've never done magic before, you pick up a book, you go on the internet, you look a spell, you're a beginner, you're a rookie. Okay? Until you remember that you are part of a lineage, or until you become part of a lineage and learn, you should be careful, because as you are careful using a power tool such as a chainsaw, or a skill saw, you're also careful using magic. Now, understand that if you take a chainsaw and you take down the biggest tree that you've ever seen, and you want to take down the biggest tree, you might get hurt if you've never done this before. But if you're an expert person at cutting down trees, maybe you can take on a big tree. So, magic exists in different forms, in many different types of applications. And it can be used to change the world around you, so that certain circumstances and things happen to your benefit, or to someone else's opposite of benefit, or to someone else's benefit too. Usually you don't do opposite of benefit to yourself, not on purpose at least. Magic is an ability to interact with the story, to interact with the world, to interact with the system. We exist within a computer program. We are systems within a computer program with different abilities and different amount of permissions within that program as they are granted by God and the organizational chart of beings of power under him, and the goddess, his wife that he loves very much. Kalividimi Kamakya Devi, Mahavidya, Puravadam Yam Shabalakatahim Kalam. Magic exists in different forms, and people go to different goddesses, different gods for their magic. And some people try to develop their own power for magic. But when they do not have the power themselves, they go to other beings. And in this way, these beings become in a way above them in a form where they try to give something to these beings in reward for the magic, right? So there's often an exchange that is done. And then there are beings that have the magic within them, that have the power within them, and that do not need to go to any other type of being to use the magic. These are often the gods, the avatars, the beings of supreme power magically, because they are of the family of God. So magic is a force within the system, and it is utilized every day by many, many, many people in the story. Many people are aware of magic and use it. When you go out on a day and you go through the mall or something like that, the odds are you are going to be interacting or passing by a spell or many, many spells that are moving around and interacting with things. Many people use spells. Organizations use spells. Companies use spells. Many types of spells are put, and there are attraction spells, protection spells, prosperity spells. These are often used. Often things that are called, for example, sweetening spells and stuff like that to make things go well, happy, sugary. And then there are spells that are used against opponents, done by people who do not mind to do these things. And there are many people who do not mind. Magic can also be used to attack, as it can be used to protect or to bless in many ways with magic. To make situations go in someone's favor, to heal even. But it can be used to attack. Right? So magic can be used many, many different ways. Now, people learn magic and they develop their abilities in magic in different ways, and depending on their story of their origin as a being, they're a being that has inherently a lot of magical power or less. You know, not everybody's destined to be a magical superstar. You know, as you have Einsteins in physics. Or people that developed different types of technology physically. Well, you also have talented people in magic as well, and other people that are more amateurs, and they can be talented ones as well. Or you have some people that are really, really proficient in those things. So you have hierarchies within magic of power, and different stories of magic practitioners, and levels of power amongst magic practitioners. So you have some practitioners that would even seek to try to capture elements of other practitioners' souls so that they can get abilities of that practitioner and add them to their own, or things like that. You know, there's many different things that are done, you know, little bottles or snares or things like that, and bring it to the bottle or whatever. All these different techniques that are very commonly used, you know. Also, there's, for example, magic practitioners that, you know, very scrupulous, often the dark ones that try to get strong at the lower levels. So what they can do very easily is they can go to a supply store, for example, at the dollar store where everybody gets their candles or things like that in magic, for candle magic or whatever, or things like that, or incense, and they can spike everything. You know, they spike everything with hooks and attachments and all that stuff. And that's done by so many people that sometimes the paper on the very candles and stuff like that will crinkle, because there's so many attachment spells that are done by so many dark practitioners that try to spike that place. So many attachments within them, ones replacing other ones over and over again, you know. So in magic, it's important to understand that you should always purify yourself, you know, and maintain your purity, and everything that comes in your possession, you have to purify. You know, you put in place the processes to purify, and you want to remove anything that comes in your possession from anything that was put on it from its journey before it coming to you, you know. So that's one thing that is important to remember in magic, is that there's a lot of games that are played by a lot of different beings, okay? And if you, the minute you get into magic at these lower levels, you know, or any levels, you're going to get supplies from somewhere, and these have gone through someone that might have put something on them, you know. So these things happen, right? Not just when you get these supplies, maybe you get a statue of something, maybe you get something else, another package in the mail, something, and then you recognize, oh, there's a spell in this package that I just received. There you can. So it's up to you to basically have your shields up eventually to protect yourself from anything that which would seek to come and basically into your life, to hook to you, to do anything like that, or to influence you in any way that you don't want to be influenced or don't choose to be influenced, right? In these things, it's not someone who's sending you a package in the mail who should be sending you a protection spell necessarily. It's probably you that should be doing it yourself, and if that's part of it, with receiving something, to do it okay, and then make sure that it happens well. So there's different things to understand in magic, that it's very complex and yet very simple. There are different systems of magic, different techniques that are used, depending on the cultures and the different storylines from which the magic comes. And all the magics, when they're used by masters, is very powerful, but some are more powerful than others. So there is a hierarchy within the levels of power of magic practitioners and their lineages. So some lineages are very powerful, and some lineages are very powerful, but even more powerful, right? So and so you say that some they balance in all ways, not necessarily. Some are just really, really, really powerful. Okay, so there are different types of using magic. Magic can be used in different ways and often works with processes of triangulation. So to create targets, to lock onto targets, things like that, right? So what else about magic? Well, magic is used by a lot of people, and it's been used by a lot of people for a long time. A lot of different cultures use magic in their different ways and processes, and maybe they don't call it magic. Maybe they call it culture or tradition, okay? Or maybe they call it different things, but it's often an application of magic. Anytime you are trying to do something, basically, a physical action or a physical thought or any thought that you have, or any action or any process that you do, to have a result which is not logically connected by physical action, right? So the minute you do something, for example, to influence something half the world away and not using technology, not with a phone call, if you know what I mean, okay? So if you want to use magic, well, if you want to influence something around the world or in another country or something like that with magic, well, you're not physically connecting to it, your body's not connecting to it, you're not using a physical technology, you're using another means to make something happen there. So it's basically paranormal, so something that happens outside of the normal perception of reality here. So when you can do something at that level and you can do it consistently, you can consider yourself someone who can practice magic consistently. And then there's different levels of practitioners, right? And basically different practitioners sometimes encounter each other, right? They often do, right? And sometimes, that's a good encounter, sometimes it's a less good encounter, but it's difficult because what happens is that their power of most practitioners comes from their deities, and they're not going to pull in their deities normally to conflict with the deities of another practitioner. So usually when practitioners meet, they usually leave each other alone to a relative extent, or the opposite happens and they go into wars of magic, right? And then it becomes a question of who's loved the most by their deity and all these different things, and then how much is the deity willing to invest in this conflict, and then it can evolve into conflicts between those deities and potentially things like that. And these things do happen, and conflicts between practitioners and all these different things. So there are things to understand about magic, is that there's a lot of forces involved. There's magic that comes from different sources, right? And these sources have been interacting with whatever sources are protecting with the other being that you want to send magic against, in case where you're doing it, some kind of magic like that. So who's the most powerful force? Who's protecting who's stronger? So it can get into delicate situations like that. So best avoid any type of magical conflict. But the reality of it is, when there's a physical conflict, often a magical conflict will come into play, right? because, that's just the way it is. It's a tool to use, right? So if there's a forced physical conflict that's forced upon the world, maybe it's forced by magic, or at least potentially magic will be used to try to end it also. So magic is used in many different circumstances in life to try to make life better, but some people try to use it to make life worse. There are dark forces as well at work, specifically the forces of destruction, which try to destroy the world and destroy the society and all that. And those are the forces of Satan, right? So the forces of the devil, the dark forces of destruction, wanton chaos, destruction. So that's just the forces of Satan, for example, which seeks to create as much destruction and pain and suffering in this world. So some people maybe are on the side where, no, we love Satan, something like that. Okay, well, you do what you want to do. So you do what you want to do. But the truth is that Satan is a force of destruction, and you're not going to have a good time when you go to hell. You're going to suffer. It's not a party. If you understand what I'm saying, it's really a place of suffering and to break your mind. Okay, that's what hell is. So you don't want to play with those forces. You don't want to go towards the dark, evil stories. And some people unfortunately do, because they do it for a search for power, right? They want to really gain power. And they know that that's a quicker way sometimes to gain power than putting in the work with benevolent forces and, learning to control those forces that you basically learn to wield as a white practitioner of magic. So there are some practitioners that go to the devil. That's the dark forces. That's the devil. There are a lot of other beings that people say are dark forces, but not necessarily that they are dark forces. So it's when you start going to the devil, that's those dark forces. That's really not good. And also, another place that's best avoided, is all kinds of death magic. All kinds of ancestor death magic and all that. Or capturing souls, that's best avoided as well. So you can easily see which practices, are bad. Anything that's like capturing dead people and their soul or something like that. Or anything going to the devil. These are like those two paths that are bad magic, right? And then you have a lot of paths, which are some people say are bad. You have, for example, the path of a lot of magic practitioners go to Santa Muerte, and I can tell you right now, she is not bad. She is not bad at all. Santa Muerte is amazing. Okay, she has the great responsibility of overseeing the processes of death. Okay, death of systems. Okay, a grave responsibility, difficult job. You always have to be there, always working, always doing the work. And the reason she gets this great responsibility and that she gets to have this worship that's growing for her and all these different things is because she's also the girlfriend of God. Okay, she's the girlfriend of God. So, God's a complex guy, has many wives. Many forms of the goddess, which are his wives. Well, he also has a girlfriend, and that's Santa Muerte, Santissima Santa Muerte. So, she has a very prominent role within the story and within magic and magic use as well. And moving into the future, her cult will continue to grow as she is also, very close to the story of the Avatar. And she is in her own right an amazing, 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 amazing saint, amazing goddess, an amazing being, right? So some people look at her and say they're scared, is a skeleton face, things like that. They say that's evil. It's not, actually. Santa Muerte is not evil, but she will be there for the magic practitioner who needs to do their craft, right? Who she is close with, who she loves. And she loves everybody because she's there for everybody. She's overseeing everybody. She keeps the bones of everybody, as you understand, and that connection to the Aztec storyline, right? So Santa Muerte is the girlfriend of God. Okay, so that's a fact that not many people know. Santa Muerte is the girlfriend of God. okay, the girlfriend of the creator of this story, and his form within the story and his storyline. And he loves her very much, as he loves his wife and all her forms very much as well. So there are different forms of magic. It comes from different places, different types. There's magic with threads, different types. Magic with candles, magic with body parts, magic with bones, magic with sinew, magic with blood, magic with paper and pen, magic with ink, right? Magic with crystals, magic with nature spirits, nature, magic with gods, magic with saints, magic with angels, many, many, many different types of magic, right? And different types and forms and manifestations of it. And people find their own path and their own tradition, and basically as they rediscover themselves and their storyline of magic, okay, who they are within the story, because if they're attracted to magic, it's probably for a reason, something with past lives, something like that. They're attracted to magic. They're meant to potentially be a magic practitioner, or it's just a quick in and out, or they have someone in their family who's in magic or something like that. And magic is a tool, right? So some people are really good with a hammer, a drill, a wrench, doing physical manual labor. Well, some people are really good with magical tools. So we need the physical labor manual people to build our homes, right? To maintain our homes, to do our plumbing, to do our electrical, to do all these different things, to do our finishing work in our homes, all these different things, to put in the insulation, to do the roof, to do the shingles, all these things, right? We need these people that are really important in our life, but we also need people that are good magically to protect these other people from things spiritually that would hurt them, for example. So, we need some people that are really, really good magically and strong in our society to protect our society spiritually from any types of spiritual attacks or anything like that from wherever they might come from. So in a way, spirituality, magic is very, you have to be strong, and the stronger you are, the more you can do, right? Because you will encounter other beings and many types of spells all over the place, Just go to, for example, a market in Mexico, where you can find brujeria and stuff like that, where you can find magic, and you'll find all these candles and spells and all these different things. Well, these are usually real spells. These have been really, made as spells, and you can see them in a visualization, as glowing items of colors, right? They're spells and colors. So all these different things that you see on the shelf, you can see them in another loca where you can see magic as glowing items of colors, glowing spells, and they're all there on the shelf all together, in different locas, in different realms of visualization. And these are all minor spells, all these types of spells that you find on the shelves and stuff like that, but very powerful. They'll come and change your life for a period of time or something like that, and there's always a little cost, right, with using magic as well, right? So they're there, as spells that can be used, right? All these different spells. And then you have higher levels of magic than your average spells in a spell store or something like that. Higher, more powerful magic, sometimes much more powerful, than a spell you would find. So depending on what type of spell, how much energy has been put into it, the power of the practitioner who made the spell, that spell will be very different. You find one candle that's a candle spell from one practitioner to another. In one case, it can be a regular practitioner and it's a regular spell candle, of a regular power. And in one case, you get to a high priest or something like that, or a high being of a great spiritual power. And then all of a sudden, one candle spell is one of the most powerful spells in all of creation. So it depends, there are different levels of power, and people can grow in power. As they grow in power spiritually, as a spiritual practitioner, they grow in power in their application, and they can use magic as well. Often, as the most advanced spiritual practitioners will often have encountered magic within their lineages and stories, and have utilizations and applications of them that they can use if they choose to do so, right? Because it's not everyone that can use magic that even wants to use magic or does it regularly, because it's a tool. You when you build the house, you pull out the hammer, but when you're watching TV, you're not holding the hammer and going, hey, your arms arm's going to get tired pretty quick if you're doing that all day. No, you do it when you need to hammer the nail. So magic can be used in many different ways, okay, to do many different things and influence world events. Sometimes politicians are influenced by magic, okay, or business leaders, okay, and people go to their beings, their Ishtadevatas, their favorite deities, or God, and they try to ask for protection from all these forces. But it depends. What if it comes from someone who's closer to God than you? Well, then in that case, it'll come through. Right? In many cases, right? Someone who's closer to God, who has more power, than sends you magic and is more powerful than the people protecting you, then that magic will come through. That magic will penetrate the shields that have been put around you. Potentially those shields won't even protect you at all from sometimes the practitioners who come in different ways with different abilities, some of them with lineages that date back to the first creation of mankind and things like that, okay? So you have to basically, or beyond that, and beyond even the stories of men and all these different things. So there is the story of men and the lineages of men. There's the story of gods and the lineage of gods, the story of spirits and the lineage of spirits. There is the story of demons and the lineage of demons, and there's stories of true death and ancestors and the lineage of that. Right? So these are all the different lineages of the Mahavu, which is the great view of Maya, the great illusion, right? Of all of everything that exists in manifestation and all its forms and manifestations, right? Everything that's the storyline of the story we're living right now, and everything that will come into creation, everything that exists and continues to exist, the eternal storyline of the Maya story of creation, and which contains all things, right? So you have the different storylines which are contained with them. And then you have the storylines of the different Adi Shri and the stories that they created with their lineages of empowerment, okay? And distribution, okay? Distribution of powers, okay? Powers that are distributed to individuals so that they can use them to develop the world in a profitable way, so that we can discover new manifestations of creation with applications of city power used in different combinations of applications by different individuals, in a division of creation, a division of the experience of creation of God, okay? A division of the experience of the story and the storyline as it manifests and goes forward. So magic can be used to influence the story, change the story in certain ways and abilities depending on the empowerments of the individual using that magic, okay? So different magic practitioners are at different levels of magic practitioner, okay? I am at the level of the Grand Master. There are different levels of magic practitioners, different paths, different traditions, okay? And where does my magic come from? My magic is the magic of the Shri, okay? The Shri avatar. So there are different practitioners. There are, for example, witch doctors, wizards, witches, all types of different beings using magic here, okay? And people going at different traditions, the Brujariyas, different traditions of magic practitioners. And there are people going to God for magic and miracles as well. So there are those who go, who try to cast the spells themselves, and there are those that go to the divine directly and ask for assistance from the divine for a divine issue. They go for a miracle, they go for an intervention of God, right, and different things. And in magic, things are a little bit different, where the practitioner sometimes tries to use their skill, their ability, their power to do that. But that is also closely done by the priest, who tries to use their ability, their skill, their method of connecting to the divine. So there is a fine line divided between, going to traditions of priest and magic. There's a close connection in many, many ways, but magic usually involves an inherent power of the practitioner, okay, to use magic, and the priest involves an inherent ability to go to the divine's power, okay? So there's a distinction usually at that level, where one is getting the divine help, assistance, and the other one is developing power themselves, right? And the magic practitioner. So different ways of seeing things, different ways of doing things that are powerful. Now there's also spirits. Spirits inhabit, so all things, all beings, okay, all creation, everything in creation has either a soul or a spirit, okay? And spirits can be worked with to influence the world and work magic with spirits, okay? There are also the paths of men, which come from the origin stories of mankind, such as the path of Styx, the path of flowers, the path of clay, the path of war. And these paths also exist when you go into different Vu, okay, or different lines of creation of the Maya, the Mahamaya Vu, the great view of the Maya, okay? So there are different views of magic, different utilizations of magic. And magic is utilized in different ways, in different cultures of the world, comes from different storylines. There is magic that comes from the Naga, which we talked about. Okay, there is magic, and the Naga are the snake beings. Okay, so there is many type of magic that is used, and it is a very interesting subject for those that like to learn about interesting things and learn about tools. As some are you inclined to use a hammer and nails, or a chainsaw or something like that, or very physical and very good physically. Well, some people are very good at using magical tools, okay? Like some people are very good at developing spiritually at very high spiritual levels, okay? So there are different people that are good at different things. Some good people are good at being doctors, great doctors. Some people are great at doing different things, and some people like doing different things as well. So magic is basically a specialization, and within magic there are different specializations, many different specializations, many different ways of doing things. Some people use sacrifice, okay, and do blood sacrifices and things like that. And some people don't have the need to do that within their tradition. Their tradition is as powerful without doing those things. So there are different traditions, different ways of doing things. Okay, so for example, if you look, for example, in voodoo, okay, me, I'm very close to the god Ogun, okay, and Ogun, there is sacrifice, right? But I am also very close to Santa Muerte, and Santa Muerte, there is no blood sacrifice. You don't do blood sacrifice with Santa Muerte because she oversees life. She oversees death processes, right? So you don't get to decide when something dies. She's the one who decides when something dies, when she comes for that thing. Okay, so different ways of seeing things, and powers come from different ways. The processes of magic work in different ways. For example, in the Chinese path, you have many different Chinese lineages. The Chinese lineages are diverse, but on all the Chinese lineages, there's one commonality, for example, that everyone has the white paper puppets, right? Which commonly is found in the different Chinese lineages, right? The ability, and some people use them in different ways to change the story, to do different things, to often in a war setting, but different ways depending on the understanding of those lineages. There's different things with needles, with points, pressure points, concentrating the prana, concentrating the shakti, the chi, right, and using that in different ways. Needle-like applications. There's different ways, like the spread of colors, the spread of cards, spread of colors. There's different techniques. There's Chinese animism, which no one wants to ever talk about a Chinese animist because that's very scary. And then there's different abilities. There's the one who created the gu, the master of the gu, and no one wants to talk to a gu master because a gu master ruins people's lives for wealth, for profit, right? But creating a gu is the specialty in magic as well within the Chinese lineages. And then you have different lineages and different paths. You have the lineages of magic on the Indian side, right? Which are very which are very closely guarded secrets. And then you have all these different types of magic and applications of magic. Different uses which can be done. So it's very interesting. Magic is very diverse, okay? There are many different types of magic, many different uses, okay? and it can be used in many different ways, and eventually, starts becoming used in all ways. So there's a lot of blows going on between one practitioner sometimes and the other, and people fighting over defending other people and stuff like that. But also there's healing that comes through magic, which can be done through magic. So it's not all vicious and bloodthirsty, although there's a lot of that at the lower levels. But when you get to the higher levels, that's when you get into the beings that are willing to put in the work to try to heal someone who really has those diseases that can't be healed by other means or something like that, to use magic to really help someone in their life. When you get more experience in magic, you realize that you don't get lost in the little power games anymore. You're beyond that. You've already got your power. And now it's more like, well, what can you do, to make someone's life better in a day? Maybe you can help one person in a day make their life better. That's a good day. So there are different ways. It's not because someone uses magic that they're a bad person, right? Sometimes they can be a very good person. There's some people like talents, for example, that can do healing and things like that. They can be very, very good and kind-hearted people, and they want to help children that are sick or things like that, really help people or elderly people that are sick too, but you have some people that get lost in the power games. So one thing to remember with magic is that some people get lost within the power games, right? Especially at those lower levels. That's why you go to a supply store and there's so many dark practitioners that spiked it with hooks, because those people are just trying to get power from all the new practitioners of magic that are picking up magic that they can put hooks in and keep hooks in for a very long time without that person knowing, to drain their powers magically, so that they can empower themselves as spiritual practitioners on the dark paths, right? Hooking into others and draining from others. A lot of draining energy that takes place, things like that. And defenses are very important in magic. So defenses, caution, purifying yourself, purifying the things in your life, not going to the bad path is my recommendation in magic in this video. So we're going to end this video on this note. It's been a long and extensive video on magic, right? I hope it was interesting for you. If you like this video, please subscribe. Please leave a comment. Please like. And I hope you learned a little bit more about magic in this video. Thank you for listening to this video on the Zen Warrior channel.